Okay, reassembly time for our little friend. We'll start by doing the rotor and then the spool, and then we'll carry on from there. So I don't know if you think back to if you saw the previous video, we had to find a little spring for this click button here, which we've done. So we'll put that in first. The spring just goes in there. I'm doing this whole reassembly and disassembly thing just in case there's someone out there that's got one of these FJ Stradics, and hopefully this gives you some references, some details to look back on. So that little button just sits in there like that. A trip bar. And the spring tensioner. So that's all the mechanisms for the bail arm to go on. And then we'll locate that spring arm there into that hole there. Just like that. And then put a little bit of pressure onto it, get the arm located, all while not going into orbit. I'll say that a bit, but it happens, it's a thing. There we go, clicked into place. This is where you need sort of 20 fingers to hold everything in place while you get a screw in. Once we get that screw in, we're good, we're golden. And you can hear that click of that little. We'll just pop this little screw out. We'll get our oil and we'll just put a drop in there, drop in there, and we won't put it there for now. Now we'll get our little protector plate, that in there, that will hold everything in place. And that's the bail arm reassembled. You can hear that click of the little button that we resprung. Trip lever's working up and down. The next thing we'll pop in is this little rubber grommet that we showed in the disassembly. And carefully pick it up with your tweezers, put it in the hole there. And just seat it like that. It's a nice snug fit in there, so it'll just sit there on its own. Next we'll put our little plastic moulding in there. We'll put a drop of oil on there. So what we'll do is we'll prepare We'll prepare our little mounting post first. The bail arm on, put our mounting post in. It just needs to go in its own orientation. There it is, right like that. Get our screw and a little tiny drop of blue. Blue Loctite I'm talking about there, of course. That's all it takes. Okay, with the Loctite in there, it just needs to be snugged down to a point where it still has freedom of movement, but minimal side to side. And that's about exactly where it wants to be. So this side plate can go on. See what I mean about having these screws in their respective locations? Just makes assembly so much simpler. Not really much to tell here. It's not rocket science, but it's just a process. And hopefully there's someone out there that's got one of these little Stradics and they can have a go at it and doing a service themselves. And hopefully this will help them out. Okay. Next thing we can put on is the line roller assembly, which we assembled before, if you remember, just to keep all the little parts in order. So that can come off. That can come off, as can that. And this support post goes in first and just sort of locates in its socket like that. Then we put a splicer. And then our line roller assembly with the other spacer on the other side already in there. It should fit on like that. This washer here locates just on a little lug just there and over top of that little grommet that we put in. So that sits in like so. There we go. Now it's just a matter of carefully locating that into place, and then that should be ready to take its screw, which will get its own little bit of Loctite. Really important to put Loctite here because these things have a bad habit of falling off at the most inopportune moments on the water, and you don't want that. Don't want to see your line roller assembly going over the side of the boat or into the sand where it's gone forever. Okay, so we just snug that down. And we'll just check for, yep, free movement of the line roller. Good. And we'll just give this, it's got no movement there, which is good. We'll just give this screw a little nip up like that. And that's the rotor. Done. Ready. Put it to one side. Okay, so spool reassembly. See, it's been desanded and it's good to go. There's these drag washers. So you see there's two drag washers there, two the same, and one with a slightly smaller hole. That's the bottom one. That's the first one to go in. So that goes in, and then in goes your plate. Another washer, or another felt washer. And then the eared washer, which is sort of holds this part of the assembly stationary. And another felt washer. Just need to make sure that it's all seated nicely. And then the top washer, locating those lugs into the slots. And then a clip. Which is as simple as that, really. And that's it. Good to go. These can have carbon tex drag washers put in them without a problem. Not strictly necessary, but you know, once you do it, they last a lifetime. So that's the spool and the rotor. Done. Okay, a little bit of body reassembly. First bit is this idle gear. It's just a plastic, it's probably nylon or something fancy like that, but bottom line is it's plastic. So that just doesn't matter which way it goes in, it's the same on both sides. So that just drops down in. You'll see a little sort of a dish in there, cutaway, just lines up with the hole like that. There's a little stopper on the end there. I'll show you what that's for. But that effectively holds that idle gear in place. So here's this. Was a little bit had a little bit of corrosion on it, if you remember. Just cleaned all that off. I'll put a little bit of lube on that, just being careful not to get it in the screw hole, because that's going to have a little bit of Loctite in it. That slides in that far. Then we get the switch. Drop that in. Just got to line it all up and push it in to line up the screw hole there, which it does nicely. Now we can get a tiny dab of blue on our tiny little screw. I think the bottle of blue is just about, there's a little bit, there's not much in there though, just the smallest amount. And just snug that down, don't over tighten it, just sort of, just firm. Check for movement, which is nice. And what can we do now? We can pop the little spring back in, which is always fun. It's another one of those 10 needing 10 fingers. An octopus would make it really easy. Okay, so the way this goes is one end of the spring into the slot that's evident on the little switch arm. Okay, so that just goes like that. And there we go. It's got it into its position. Just push that down into there, and there you go. So that was a lot of fussing around to achieve that. And so something went wrong with the audio there, so we'll just have to do a bit of a voiceover thing, but that's okay. So here, as you can see, we're putting in the worm shaft, which fits up, it sort of locates into that idle gear that right there. And sometimes it's a little bit of a fuss just to get it located, but on this occasion it's gone okay. This is a little plastic spacer, washer, spacer, whatever you want to call it, which is obviously just out of frame there. My bad, sorry about that. But that little plastic washer is just fitting over the end of the worm shaft, right in there. And then this bit, don't even know what they would call that, but it's a keyed thing, it's got its own little slot. And just check for freedom of movement there. Drop of oil down there, not critical because that is plastic, nylon washer, and it'll gear, and it'll pick up a little bit of lube from the pinion gear. Main shaft, just a coating, just to prevent corrosion. Because these little reels are, although when you assemble them, you put a sort of a bead of grease all around the body, the body gap, but they've got no body seal in them, so they're not waterproof at all. So that can go in and find its groove with the pawl. These are guide bars, 2 of them. They locate into their respective holes, and then they seat up in the front there. And you just grab them with a pair of tweezers or whatever you can and wriggle them around until they find their seating, just like that. And the other one the same. And we can retain the whole thing with this plate. And so again, apologies for the audio. I'm really going to have to up my microphone quality somewhat. But this plate is just held on with the one screw. And that's it. A little guide retainer for the other end of the worm shaft, which is also keyed into place, and that's it. Well, that's it for the worm shaft anyway. And a lower pinion bearing. Slot it down in there and find its home. And next we can get the pinion gear. Slide that into place. Put a little bit of grease around there and there, but we won't put it on the meshing gears, the teeth yet, because that'll pick up its white grease from the dry gear. We'll go and put a little bit on there at the top, just to pick up that idle gear. That's where it runs, on the top of the pinion gear. So effectively we'll put it on the whole thing anyway. So you just need to be just a little bit aware when you're doing grease on the inside of fishing reels that you don't overdo it, because too much is too much. So we've just verified that that's running. So now we come to the main gear, and these are the two main gear bearings, which are in good working condition, so we won't change them out. We'll just re-lube them. They've been cleaned, we'll re-lube them and pop them back in. It's a fairly snug fit for this one. And now we'll put some white grease on the gear faces. You remember the little silver bit under the thumb there? Well, that's been deburred now, so it will slide nicely into the bearing that we've already put in. It doesn't take much to deburr them, but the burr is enough to interfere with the bearing. So a coating of that, we'll put some around there as well, just a bit of a barrier. Obviously there's no metal on metal contact there, but a little bit of a barrier doesn't hurt. And that will now slide down nicely into that bearing and mesh with the pinion gear teeth. So next we'll pop on the anti-reverse clutch, which has a couple of locating lugs underneath, and also needs to be located onto the switch. The switch mechanism sort of locates into the bottom of the clutch. 3 screws holding that down. Not overcomplicated, which is good. And then push the clutch ring down into place. Make sure it's functioning and grabbing and doing the anti-reverse thing. Just a coating of a barrier coat of grease on the gear there, just for corrosion protection. I know I say it over and over, but it's important if you want your reel to last a long time, not just a good time. Because of course the manufacturers don't want their reels to last too long, so they can sell you another one. The bail trip ramp which just fits in its little home there. Body side on, and then the screws. And we replaced one of the screws too. You may remember that one of the body screws was missing. These are all self-tappers, so no Loctite required there. That's the one that was missing. And like magic, a new one appears. That's the magic of having a box with many thousands of screws in it. Yet to come across a missing screw or a broken screw that I can't replace out of the magic box. And there you have it. Little nip on those ones, that one there a little bit further down. Sometimes it's easier to get a self-tapper in with a bigger screwdriver than a smaller one. Just doesn't have the oomph. But again, I'll say it again, I know it gets monotonous, but don't over tighten them, just nip them up snug. Anti-reverse switch working as it should, and here we go out of frame again. So friction ring, which just catches on the rotor when you pull the bail arm back, stops the rotor from spinning just randomly. It just holds it in place. Provides a bit of friction, hence the friction ring. So a bit of barrier grease at the back here as well to prevent, as much as we can, moisture getting in through that plate and through the joint in the body there. It's a lot easier to clean up the next time you go in to do a service on it. It's a lot easier to clean up a bit of grease than it is to deal with the corrosion that will eventually be there if you don't do something. Clean up the edges and pop the rear protector back on. A couple of screws, one particular, one different from the other, as you can see there. The smaller one goes there. Don't attempt to put the longer one in there, otherwise it will mesh with the gearing, and that will be tragic. This one also you want to be a little careful of when you put it in, so that you don't break off the little part on the plastic bit that it screws into, because it is kind of, not delicate, but too much screwdriver pressure will break it. Ask me how I know. Handle, screw cap, dust cap, whatever you want to call them. And we're looking good. And on with the rotor. Yeah, that's enough. Stop flicking it. And the rotor nut. Now these reels don't have a locating screw, a locking screw to lock the nut in place, which can be a bit of a failing, and it's something to keep an eye on between services while you're fishing, just to make sure it remains, snug down. Because if it comes loose and your rotor starts to wobble around while you're using it, eventually it'll just flog the holes out and end in tears. Lefty tighty again on these. even back then. Shimano were going with that system, which is not altogether a bad idea. And there you have it. Fully functioning. Well, almost done. Spool support next. Goes on in that orientation so that these shims can fit down inside it. They're the shims that control the level of the spool and where your line lays, so you don't build up at the top or the bottom. So these are adjusting shims. You can take them out and put them in, take one out, put one in as required when you wind the reel and check the line lay and make sure it doesn't build up at either the top or the bottom of the spool. Spool and drag knob. There's a lot of loud clicking. You see a little bit of movement there, but that's just movement in the entire system for an old reel. It's nothing to be concerned about. So there's no bearings in these. It's just bushings, and yeah, bushings are okay. Not as smooth as a bearing, but also they don't suffer from the degradation that bearings suffer from. It's another one of those vital Loctite locations, because these things have a nasty habit, a bit like the line roller screw, of unscrewing at the most inopportune moments. So a little bit of Loctite in there will work wonders. Ready for another who knows how many years of operation. Anyway, thanks again for watching. If you've made it this far, if you could like and subscribe, that'd be great, and we'll see you on the next one.